Serving as the true sweetheart of country music, Dolly Parton is a living legend of the genre. She stands tall with musical legends of all genres, past and present, who respect and admire her fierce artistry. In fact, Parton has achieved such heights that she has proceeded past the title of a musical legend and instead has proved herself to be a cultural icon, especially in her home country of the US. Her work in film, charity, business, and of course music has made Dolly Parton a figure like none other. Whilst Parton is now deemed an incredibly successful individual, this was not always the case. Her upbringing was humble and in fact rather poor. Being one of 12 children, she lived in the poor rural suburbs of Tennessee, specifically Appalachia. The housing consisted of a one-room cabin. Whilst finances were a constant worry for her family, Dolly Parton found joy in the reassuring nature of music, which her mum would expose her to. Parton would find a musical opportunity at the likes of her local church, where she sang and performed at, and a relative later gifted her her first guitar. Dolly Parton would then move on to performing on radio shows and local television channels. Much of her early work was influenced by her poor upbringing in a reflective and admirable manner which she expressed through the medium of songwriting. As a teenager, Parton recorded a cover of Puppy Love, courtesy of Louisiana-based label Gold Band Records. Shortly after, she met country legend Johnny Cash, who encouraged her to carry on with her aspirations in singing. Whilst this was all very star-studded, Parton continued a usual teenagehood where she graduated from high school in 1964 and then she moved to Nashville the very next day. However, she did not immediately hit it off as a country star. Rather, her work in songwriting is what first came, as she collaborated with Bill Owens, who was her uncle. She demonstrated a talent for writing music, with a couple of her pieces charting highly. It was in 1965 that Dolly Parton began to embark on her own solo career. Signed to a deal with Monument Records, 19-year-old Dolly tackled the world of music with a collection of songs. At the time, her label thought of her as a bubblegum pop singer, and unfortunately this early work would fail to make commercial waves. Monument was focused on creating a pop star out of Parton, although she claimed she was more inclined to country. Nonetheless, her debut album, Hello, I'm Dolly, would see the singer settled and established in her preferred genre. The debut was released in 1967 and produced by Monument founder Fred Foster. 3 of the 12 tracks were single-handedly written by Parton herself, whilst the other 7 were co-written alongside her uncle. This meant that from an early age, Dolly Parton's material reflected her mind and her experiences. Hello, I'm Dolly would begin a long and lustrous musical autobiography. The debut single, Dumb Blonde, perfectly encapsulated what Dolly Parton was about and showed everyone her charming, witty nature. Following the buzz of her first album, Dolly Parton was selected by Porter Wagoner to become a regular on his show, The Porter Wagoner Show. Although this would come to be highly effective for generating interest in Parton's music, the initial reaction was far from friendly. Parton had replaced the longtime performer Norma Jean, who was the audience favorite. And when Dolly would perform, the crowd would instead repeat Norma's name in rebellion. However, audiences would come to be fond of Dolly Parton. Porter Wagoner remained an integral part of Parton's early career, convincing his label RCA Records to sign the young country star. Although they were reluctant, RCA Records finally accepted her as part of a duo with Porter Wagoner. Around 1974, the duo began to drift apart after a lack of chart success, and Parton desiring a solo career. The duo break followed Dolly Parton's first true successful single, Jolene. Now seen as a staple and arguably Parton's most beloved work, Jolene was received very warmly upon its release, charting at the top of the country charts. Its heartbreaking subject matter about her pleading another woman not to take the love of her life is lyricism that has stood the test of time. To this day, listeners young and old resonate the hopeless anxiety that comes with such a threat. Her raw honesty on Jolene is pure Dolly Parton. In the same year as the break with Wagoner, Dolly Parton released I Will Always Love You. Although it hails a famous cover from Whitney Houston, its original meaning tells the heart-wrenching story of Parton and Wagoner's professional breakup. Sorrowful yet sweet and classically country, I Will Always Love You adopts a yearning instrument melody and a spoken bridge. Jolene and I Will Always Love You were revealed to be written on the same day and both featured on Parton's album Jolene, an album which has since become a huge seller. The rest of the decade brought a string of #1 singles and saw momentum surrounding Parton. Artists in the pop world began to find inspiration in her artistry and covered her work. It came as no surprise then that the 1980s saw a shift to the pop genre for Parton. One of the most striking country pop crossovers that Parton did was the song 95. The song was named after the 1980 comedy by director Colin Higgins and saw Parton herself acting alongside legendary actresses Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. This film marked Dolly Parton's establishment in mainstream culture. Its song found itself at the #1 spot on both the adult contemporary and pop charts simultaneously. As the years went by, Dolly Parton began to reintroduce herself to collaborations with other high-profile musicians. A hidden gem can be found in her collaboration with Emmylou Harris and Linda Ronstadt, and I made videos about those women too. They were both at their heights at the same time as Parton. Duets with the likes of Kenny Rogers and Ricky Van Shelton reinforced Parton's musical force. She has effortlessly united genres and artists together who may otherwise never meet and produce chart-topping tracks along with it. In the last decade, Dolly Parton has continued on with her solo work. Her latest offering, A Holly Dolly Christmas, is a deliciously indulgent holiday album, full of all of the charm and bounce we have come to associate with her music. This album marks her 47th studio album. Dolly Parton's determination to give the music world happiness has got her to the iconic status she is today. Dolly Parton is often regarded as one of the very best country stars and female singers of all time, having broken the record for the amount of albums charting number in the top 10 on the country charts at 42. Whilst critics and fans are avid to award her for recognition, Dolly Parton remains just as giving as always. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, she donated $1 million to Vanderbilt University for research and keeps herself involved in raising money for worthy causes. You can check out the Carly of Spotify to listen to the original tracks of the artist. It's a curated playlist with the most popular songs.